Welcome in everybody to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joe Pisapia, and this is BP NFL. It's week 5 of the NFL, and it's time to look at the stats because week 4 certainly had some wacky ones, plus a ton of injuries. They're going to move some lines as we get more updates, and to help us stay ahead of the curve is, of course, the scientist, the mad scientist perhaps as well, Sam Hoppen, our data analyst here at Betting Pros and Fantasy Pros, to help us get you through this week in wagering. Sam Hoppen, great to see you as always, my friend. I know some crazy things have been going on. You got your Jordan Love back for the Packers. I love his matchup this week. We against the Rams. I'm excited about that one. And unfortunately, we have to also temper some expectations. No Jonathan Taylor this week, most likely. Certainly no Rashee Rice. That's going to be a huge loss too. And some other injuries that we're still trying to figure out. But Sam, as we turn the page into week 5, I think one of the biggest storylines has got to be what we've seen out of the Washington Commanders the last 2 weeks. I know when we get into the futures discussion in this show, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but could we be looking at the Washington Commanders being this year's version of last year's Houston Texans?
From an offensive perspective, certainly. I mean, they've been guns a-blazing on offense. They're hitting on every cylinder right now. They're moving the ball. They have the lowest 3-and-out rate in the league, highest EPA per drive, all that sort of stuff. The one concern is the defense, which the Texans did have a much better defense last year. Now, Washington's defense played a little bit better last week against a Cardinals offense that I have rated pretty highly. But I think, again, their defense is ranked dead last in a lot of metrics. I think they need to get to top 20, top 16 to really have a chance to be, reach the ceiling that the Texans did last year, which is getting to the playoffs and making some noise in the playoffs. So certainly from a where were we with this team preseason to where we are now, they're further ahead of the curve than I think the Texans were last year. It wasn't until sort of the middle of the season that
the Texans had all those offensive line injuries.
And so
remember last year they had all that, the whole line was out last year. I feel like that kind of maybe held them back just a little bit, where you saw some glimpses of, hey, maybe this could be special. And then line got healthy and obviously they rolled into the playoffs. So we've got a lot to break down today. Before we get into everything, just a reminder too, we got a new giveaway going on here at Betting Pros. Old school Michael Strahan Giants jersey. Remember when the Giants were good at football? Well, I do. And when they were, Michael Strahan was playing. So if you want a chance to win this bad boy from our good friends over at pristineauction.com, all you need to do is head to bettingpros.com/contest. Pretty easy to remember, right? bettingpros.com/contest. Complete the form and either download the Betting Pros app, leave a review of the Betting Pros podcast, or subscribe to our social media channels at Betting Pros on X, on TikTok, and at Betting Pros NFL on IG on the Instagram. And the more actions you complete, the more entries you receive. We'll be announcing the winner right here on the channel, so make sure you turn on those notifications so you can be alerted. Ring that bell till it goes ding so you don't miss an episode of Betting Pros here on the YouTube channel, and you'll be notified if you are the big winner of the Michael Strahan jersey. Sam, let's kick things off here with a little bit of news and notes and what might move some lines this week. Let's start with the Colts and Jaguars, the winless Jags, the Colts trying to figure out here Tuesday morning who's going to be playing quarterback this weekend. So what are we looking for and paying attention to as we look ahead to this game?
Yeah, so we're really going to touch on some of the injuries here because there's a couple things I want to talk about with this game later on in the show. But this opened with Jacksonville favored by 2.5. It was heavily juiced towards the 3. Now it is out to 3, heavily juiced towards the Indy side. There are some 2.5s out there as well. So really, again, 2.5, 3 is where the line's at. We don't have an Anthony Richardson update right now as of recording. I find it hard to believe that the Colts, risk him going out there again. So I think Joe Flacco is probably in line to make this start, though I don't know that really impacts the line that much, whether it is Flacco or Richardson. They have a pretty similar median outcome, in my opinion. Richardson, I think, has a slightly longer left tail towards the sort of positive extreme with some of the deep balls he can have, but Flacco is sort of a sitting pick six waiting to happen, while Richardson has obviously made a number of mistakes already this year. The other player you mentioned is Jonathan Taylor. As of yesterday, again, don't have any updates from Shane Steichen on the severity of his injury. It sounds like there's no concern of him heading to injured reserve, but his availability for week 5 is certainly in question. And again, the running backs don't matter thing gets thrown around a lot, but he is one of just a couple of huge playmakers that the Colts have on offense. So I do think it changes the dynamic of how the Colts do play this game if Jonathan Taylor is not active. I think they lean a little bit more heavily into the passing game. I think, again, if Flacco is starting and Taylor is out, then passing and receiving props for the Colts is something I'm certainly looking into.
I wonder too if Flacco does play, that raises the bar on some of those props on guys like Pittman, just a more proficient passer. Sure, there's some pick sixes in there with Flacco, But at the same time, we saw what he did last year where he started to elevate some of those guys like Amari Cooper and kind of brought them back to life, those veteran wideouts. Second game we're going to talk about here, Chiefs and Saints. Now, yesterday, if you missed it, go back and watch a look-ahead show because it was the last game we talked about. It's Monday Night Football, and Andrew Erickson and I are kind of holding hands here. Like, this is a dangerous spot here. Saints coming off a disappointing loss, but they're running the ball very well with Alvin Kamara. Right now, the injuries taking their toll a little bit on the Chiefs. It feels like this one is ripe for at least the Saints with the points, if not maybe a Chiefs, maybe dropping the ball here and a New Orleans Saints upset. But let's talk about all of what the Chiefs have and don't have right now and how that's going to factor into Monday night.
Yeah, so before we get to the Chiefs, I want to talk about Taysom Hill and whether he's going to play. Again, I don't know what position he's listed at these days, but the last time he didn't play, which was against the Eagles, their offense looked pretty stagnant against the Eagles. So I do think with how big of a red zone threat he is, the types of plays that he opens up for that Saints offense, his availability will certainly have an impact on this game. On the Chiefs side of the ball, obviously lost Rashee Rice. The severity of his injury is unknown, but Reed did confirm that he will be out this week. And I really think this is a much bigger impact than people really expect. When you think of Rashee Rice, you don't think of a guy who's sort of in the Justin Jefferson, the Devontae Adams, tier of receivers, but I think he has that level of impact. Right now, he is 10th in the league in receiving EPA. Xavier Worthy and Justin Watson are the only other players on the Chiefs to have added more than 5 total EPA, and they have a combined 15 catches this year. I think without Rashee Rice, this is a bottom 5 skill group, especially with Travis Kelce still not, reaching his level of performance the past several years. This offense has struggled so far. It's looked kind of clunky. They're not as explosive as they have been in years past. They rank 13th in EPA per play, but they're 3rd in success rate. So I think the floor for the Chiefs continues to stay high. As long as you have Patrick Mahomes, your floor is going to be high. And we've seen him in years past with a depleted skill group still carry the Chiefs to a win. But I'm with you and Erickson. I think the Saints are the play here and have a really good chance to pull off the upset.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you want to go a little, one unit on the upset on the money line, but then maybe heavier on the points with the New Orleans Saints, I think that's the way I feel the most comfortable approaching this game right now. But especially with that bye staring them in the face next week, it just feels like maybe just a little gas is out of that tank. They're getting by on fumes right now, it feels like a little bit. And you kind of saw that against the Chargers. All right, last game here, Patriots-Dolphins. Gross. I can't believe you want to talk about this one, Sam. The Dolphins just miserable again. A big missed opportunity for a big play there with Tyreek Hill. Huntley wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire. I know it's only a week with the playbook, but still, and the Patriots, one of the worst offenses in the league. So it's hard to set an under number here that's that I feel comfortable with. Like, how low do we go before we start to go, oh man, I'm uncomfortable with this number? But what's your take on this game, and what are you seeing that you think people should be paying attention to?
Yeah, look, you said gross, but I've learned to appreciate every single game we've got in the NFL. By mid-March, you're going to be wishing we had a Patriots versus Dolphins matchup on a Sunday afternoon. But this line has pretty much been a pick'em since it opened. It looks like the Patriots are favored, not flavored, slightly now in the market. The big question on the Dolphin side is whether they continue to roll with Tyler Huntley. It seems like that'll be the case. Mike McDaniel had some decent things to say about him and his performance on Monday night. On the New England side of the ball, they continue to deal with several injuries on the offensive line. Their center David Andrews left Sunday's game with a shoulder injury. Caden Wallace, who was filling in for Vidarian Lowe at left tackle for the past 2 games, was using crutches on Sunday after the game. This was already one of the league's worst offensive lines. So realistically, it's not a major downgrade to be going to your second, third, or fourth replacement player. But the continuous mixing and matching on the offensive line is terrible. We know that continuity on the offensive line is huge for at least maintaining a floor in an in an offense. And now they'll face a Dolphins team that has the 11th highest pressure rate in the league. Again, you said the total is low. I think it was 36.5, if I'm remembering correctly. Honestly, like the under in this game is probably the play, because the Dolphins are the league's worst offense right now, and really pushing the bill on, how valuable is Tua, how much influence does Mike McDaniel have? And then on the Patriots side, they're one of the worst teams in the league. So
no offensive line.
Yeah.
It's just a disaster. 35.5, by the way, is what I'm seeing is the best number on BP right now. So get it while the getting's good, folks. The longer people have to stare at this, the more they're going to hate it. All right, before we get to a look into the future, just a quick reminder too, if you're talking about, looking at potentially betting this Patriots Miami Dolphins under, I encourage you to look at some of the systems that we have over on the BettingPros app too. Just a quick reminder about the betting systems. It'll tell you, how good you are at betting unders. It'll start to look at some of the tracks of, how does the Patriots offense go after a loss? How do the trend line potentially for the Miami Dolphins? All these things that are going in that wrong direction here for both of these teams, you can use to your advantage, to Sam's point. And using the betting systems, it's a great way to track and understand where the trend lines are and what's going on, and then make you a better, which is what we're trying to do here at Betting Pros. All right, next thing here is a look into the future. Last week we talked about Josh Allen MVP. I'm still on that wagon. I know they got destroyed by the Ravens, but Derrick Henry's not winning MVP. It's going to be a quarterback. We'll see as time goes on. I think Jordan Love, by the way, fascinating. Going into Sunday's action, he was plus 4,500. I haven't looked and seen what that number is this morning out of curiosity, but let's talk about the NFC East. We teased at the top. We talked about the Commanders, the Cowboys so far, sluggish to start the year. The Eagles having injuries. Perfect time for a bye for them. They need it. Hurts has become a turnover machine. And then, of course, the Giants. Well, they're the Giants. So your thoughts on the NFC East and what it looks like right now?
Yeah, you mentioned the Giants. They're 60-1 to win the division. I believe is last of any team in any division right now. But I want to go team by team here real quick. So the Eagles are our current favorites. They're plus 110 to win the division right now. But they're one bad loss away from possibly getting rid of this coaching staff. Again, fortunately have a week 5 bye to get healthier, hopefully get both Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown back on the other side of the bye. The Cowboys sitting at plus 240. Their offense is sputtering because they can't get production outside of CeeDee Lamb. This was a concern I had going into the season. They just didn't have playmakers outside of Lamb, who raises the floor a little bit, but they don't have that ceiling. The defense is down tremendously. They're likely without Michael Parsons in week 5, and it could be longer. DeMarcus Lawrence is expected to go on injured reserve, and those two have been holding the defense down a little bit, even if they haven't performed very well overall. And then you have Washington. We talked about them at the top of the show. They have current offensive rookie of the year, Jaden Daniels, leading this offense to historical rates. But to put some cool water on them, they have faced two of the bottom five defenses in their last two games. I think how long Jaden Daniels can stay healthy is a question. We saw with Anthony Richardson taking those hits, not sliding. It can be a concern, and those hits start to compound. Like I said, their defense did show signs of life last week. I think as Dan Quinn starts to get more comfortable with this defense, it can improve, but they still rank dead last in EPA per play allowed. So this isn't a market I really want to buy into right now. I think the way it's priced is pretty fair. I leave it to I think this is the Eagles division to lose, just because when healthy, they are the most talented team in the division. And I just think, despite some of the issues they've had, they still have a really good chance to win it. But at close to even money, I don't want to buy them right now. And again, Dallas has its flaws. Washington, I think you're buying high, which I don't necessarily want to do in a division winner market right now.
No, it makes a lot of sense. You mentioned those Cowboys injuries that they're dealing with on the defensive side. It's one of the reasons why I think this week is very interesting for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah,
I think they can bounce back and get another W here with the way Fields has played, and potentially now they've got some offensive line issues on their own, obviously, too, and they just lost a player for the year. But still, that game feels like another one of these like classic Steelers primetime unders to me, where everyone's gonna be so excited. Oh, it's this marquee matchup, and then it's like 16-13 and we're all miserable. Let's talk about some of the key numbers they're gonna drive week 5, and let's start with the Bills defense, because you've been doing some homework on them. Obviously last week, lots of yards given up to Derrick Henry, just a few, but this week in the upcoming matchup they've got here, the Bills have to have a short memory here and turn the page, because they've got another tough matchup ahead of them here with the Houston Texans, and again, another game on the road. So what are the numbers we're looking at in this contest on the Bills D?
So the Bills defense is a pretty big run funnel right now. They're allowing the third highest EPA per carry, but also allowing the seventh lowest EPA per drop back. And I think we saw Sunday night what a team with the lead against the Bills can do is they can continue to run the ball, target the weakness of this Bills defense. And for the first couple of games, the Bills have, save the first game where they were down against the Cardinals. They've gotten off to hot starts. They've been able to get those leads, and then teams are forced to pass against them. They're able to rush the passer extremely well. And so now they get this Texans team that is much stronger passing the ball with CJ Stroud and all those weapons. I don't know that the Texans necessarily have the chops in the running game to take advantage of this run funnel defense that the Bills have. We'll see if Joe Mixon is back, but even with him and the hot start he got off to, I don't know that that'll be the case. So I think this is a potential live betting angle as well. If you see the Bills get down against a team and are facing a team that has a solid rushing attack, then basically targeting whoever their opponent is on the spread and thinking that they'll be able to continue to have success. So again, it's a big dynamic here. And I think it's better for the Bills overall that they have a better pass defense. Even though passing rates are lower across the league, passing is still more efficient. So just something I'm looking into as matchups come up for the Bills the next couple of weeks.
All right. Certainly something to keep an eye on, that's for sure. Let's talk about the next set of stats here. The Broncos defense, which played incredibly well. Actually played well the last couple of weeks, but that game against the Jets, I know the weather was an issue. We can make all the excuses you want, but at the end of the day, that Denver Bronco defense carried that team to a victory on their backs and held the Jets offense without a touchdown. So what do you see in their future this week? Again, another matchup where you have to worry about whatever the offense is going to give you. So the defense has to give you more than you could ask for. But the Las Vegas Raiders, a team that has been, struggle bus for the most part offensively this year. And look, frankly, should have lost last week. We all know that. So when you're looking at Denver this week, what stands out to you?
Yeah, so the Broncos defense, when I looked at some of the stats for the first time this week, I was shocked to see how well they've rated out so far. They're first in EPA per play and success rate allowed, first in explosive pass rate allowed, first in EPA per drive allowed. They are blitzing at one of the higher rates in the league, but they're getting pressure at a pretty good clip right now as well. So far this season, they faced the Seahawks, the Steelers, the Buccaneers, and the Jets. But across a 4-week sample, I think we should consider that it's not just the teams that they faced that is leading to the Broncos having success on defense to start. DVOA, which takes opponents into account, has them ranked as the 7th best defense on the year, and their next 4 opponents shouldn't give them much trouble either. They face the Raiders, Chargers, Saints, and Panthers. So it is a tough team to gauge offensively, though, because they're bottom 5 in almost every efficiency metric right now. It's very similar to the Jets from last year, who had an incredible defense but could barely move the ball on offense. So obviously lines are adjusting for this dynamic, and they have an incredibly low total in the game that they're playing against the Raiders this week. But I think in those instances, I would rather target their opponent's team total under. I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head for the Raiders this week. But again, if the Raiders are missing Devontae Adams again, then I certainly think the under on the Raiders team total, depending on the line, is in play.
All right, last one to get to here, and then we'll give the survivor pool pick of the week. Trevor Lawrence. Look, the numbers are not very good. We did a comparison on the show the other day that I was on Fantasy Pros to him and Daniel Jones, and it's eerily similar so far for their career. Jones played a couple more games, but the interceptions and the touchdowns are kind of right there in line. So is the passer rating, so is the QBR, like all this stuff. So clearly Lawrence has struggled. Clearly things are not going well. This is a desperate kind of situation. 0-4. You're playing for your season. I think that makes the Jags a little dangerous this week. But Sam, what have you seen so far in the numbers that we should be paying attention to when it comes to Trevor Lawrence this week?
Yeah, so I know we talked about this game a little bit earlier, mostly on the Colts side of things, but want to talk about a specific matchup advantage that I think the Jaguars finally have. So far this season, they've played the 11th, 5th, 22nd, and 2nd best teams in pressure rate. And now they play a Colts team that ranks 21st in pressure rate. They could be without Kwity Paye again this week. Tyquan Lewis, another defensive end, suffered a calf injury against the Steelers, though he was able to return to the game. The 22nd ranked pressure rate defense they faced was the Bills, and they obviously gave them a lot of trouble on Monday night a couple weeks ago. But like we just talked about, the Bills have been great all around as a passing defense. So all that to say, according to Next Gen Stats, Trevor Lawrence is averaging about 0.02 EPA per play without pressure. That's not great. It's not spectacular, but it is much better than a negative 0.61 EPA per dropback when he is facing pressure. I think there is a potential that the Jaguars get Evan Ingram back this week as well, which would be a huge help to that offense. Yeah. So I really like looking at Lawrence's alt passing yards right now, pairing that with some alt spreads for the Jaguars as well. I think this could be a really good spot for Trevor Lawrence in this offense to get back on track against a Colts defense that has not really played all that spectacularly throughout the season so far. So you're getting the Jaguars at their lowest. They are favored by a couple points right now, but I think extending that out, hoping that they hit that tail outcome against the Colts is certainly within range.
Yeah, certainly feels like it is indeed. Before we get to survivor pool picks of the week, I'm done, by the way. I'm out twice now, so no more excuses. I don't get to buy back in another time. Stupid Jets could not handle their business against the Broncos. The Broncos and Bo Nix, I mean, just an embarrassment at quarterback, and you still can't beat him in your own building. Boo. But anyway, don't forget to subscribe to the channel too. Again, Make sure you comment below. Tell us some of the stats that you're looking for in week 5 that have got you excited to bet. But also don't forget to turn on that notifications bell too, so you don't miss any of the live streams. You don't miss any of the moments here on the channel, because coming up this week, we got the prop show, we got the best bets, and Thursday Night Football, which we've been crushing, Bogman and I, the last couple weeks. So don't miss any of that as well. All right, Sam, here we go. Back again. Maybe the Chicago Bears are in play this week for you. They seem to somehow find a way to win. Maybe they could beat the Carolina Panthers in their own building, perhaps, despite the shortcomings of Caleb Williams. I don't know. Where are you going for your survivor pool pick for week 5?
Yeah, it's a tough week because as it stands now, there are just 3 games with a spread of more 5 points. We've got the Chiefs against the Saints. We talked earlier about why I'm staying away from that particular game. We have the 49ers hosting the Cardinals, but I used the 49ers this past week, and they got through that with ease against the Patriots. So I'm going to go to this last team, which is the Seahawks favored against the Giants. I think coming off of a disappointing loss last night where their defense got hammered a ton by the Lions, they should have more success against Daniel Jones, especially if the Giants are without Malik Neighbors, who's still in concussion protocol. I think this is a great week for the Seahawks to bounce back, get a win at home. I think another survivor pick, if you're feeling frisky, is the Washington Commanders. We talked about them a lot on this show so far. The Browns defense is probably going to be their toughest defensive matchup so far this year, but I think that defense is also, it's not what it was last year by any means. And this Browns offense is one that this Commanders defense should be able to shut down. So if you're in a survivor pool with multiple entries still going around, then props to you, because that's very impressive. But I think the Seahawks and Commanders as a potential leverage play, especially if you think that Daniels gets hurt later on in the season, now would probably be the time to use them.
Yeah, certainly makes sense. I love that the Cleveland Browns find ways to lose games, Sam. I think that's really what it's all about. Sam Hoppen, always amazing to talk to you. Get the numbers we need to know for week 5 in the NFL. And don't forget also, everybody, check out Sam's work over at bettingpros.com. He's got all of the latest out there too. So check out more deep dives into the players and the teams that we want to make some money on this week. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Sam Hoppen, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. Enjoy week 5.